Hey, it's Jonathan from Enigma Photos, working on another image here today. This one is the interior of a vintage Ferrari. Unfortunately, off the top of my head, I can't tell you what type of Ferrari it is, but it was 50s, 60s. I ran into a little shop that's not far from my house that actually fixes, refurbishes, and maintains, and also stores um, a lot of pretty amazing supercars. And this is one of them that was sitting in there. I was playing around that day with what is it? The 35.1.4 art lens on my D850. In fact, let's look. So this was shot with the D850, 35 millimeters at 1.4, ISO 64, 35 millimeters, of course, at 1.4 and 1/6 of a second. If I remember correctly, this was handheld, um, but it was a picture that I thought would look really, really cool to make vintage. Every once in a while, I use presets. I'm in within Lightroom, just so you know. And you come over here and you can pick color profiles. And this isn't an ad for them, but I found something that I really liked from let's think it's Lutify, so lutify.com. And they have some really cool looks, especially their vintage film or instant films, but they're basically vintage film. And I thought with a vintage car, it would be fun to do this kind of like a retro Polaroid-ish kind of move pictures um, feel to it. So as you can see, they have many different looks. There's before, there's after. I really like that one. But again, when we're doing our images, it's up to us how we want to define them, how we want to feel about them, what aspects we want to bring out of them. Always remember that. Like, this is taking the photograph is one part, but editing it the way you feel is all you. Like, that's the art we make. We create art, right? It's an art form, it's how we feel. So, for me, I want something that's really kind of retro looking, really kind of cool. So I'm just going to go through here and look at these. I kind of like that one. It's just a little bit too, the colors are a little bit too faded for me. So the cool thing with Lightroom is once you pick it, you can pick the amount. So this is at 100%, but then I can dial it back so it blends in some of the original photo. And that one's not bad, but I don't know, I'm still digging that one. Actually, this is the one that I'm digging the most. So with a photo like this kind of gives me the baseline. And I think I actually like it. I might turn it down just a little bit. And the way I shot it, as you can see, is this is in focus, but with that 1.4 narrow aperture, everything else becomes blurry. And I love that. I love that look, especially with the got little bokeh rings here, the circles from the glint from the door. So that was kind of the theme of this photo. So the first thing I usually do is remove chromatic aberration and enable lens correction. Now, at 1.4, you're going to get some vignetting. And the more that you use that lens, the more you know the certain situations where you're like, do I want to leave that vignetting in? When the vignetting is the darkening, or do I want to take it out? So in this situation, I'm actually not going to click this because it brightens it, but I think the picture is more moody and more retro leaving the vignetting in. So up here, I can mess around with exposure. I'm just going to tick it up just a little bit, and I'll show you why later. Then I can play with the contrast. Think about 14 is good. Highlights, I can tone down the brightness of some of the things, like you can see the doors here or along this window sill. I'm going to bring that in and it brings kind of like the color back in. I like that. Shadows, I like how the shadows are kind of muted. You can bring just a little bit back. I like that. White's something you can play with. Again, I'm holding down Option just to see what would happen if I push it because it'll tell me. But on this one, again, I still want it a little bit muted. A little bit of light, but a little bit muted. And then blacks, again, the dark parts of the image, if you want to make them darker. And the crazy thing is, too, now with today's technology, especially with OLED, you can get perfect blacks. So I kind of think about that, too, because phone screens are OLED. A lot of them, most of them now are. We've got TVs that are OLED. And with technology shifting, sometimes you have to edit to what your pictures are going to look best on or what predominantly people have on. So that's, again, a choice that you can make on your own. Then I'm going to play with vibrance a little bit. I think the colors look pretty good. There's not much boosting that is being done here. So I'll leave it about there. And then, of course, this is when when I'm done, I go ahead and edit in Photoshop. Let's check it out. Photoshop's popping up. Booyah. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller just to make sure I have the whole picture in the frame. And I really like that. The only thing I'm thinking about doing is maybe putting a vignette here where everything's in focus, kind of to enhance that. So like I've shown you before, I go up to elliptical tool, make a circle. I always keep it feather at 300 up here. I didn't mention that in the last video, but you can see it from the video itself. Then I go ahead and hit a curves layer, and then I do Command I, which I'm pointing at the screen. It's kind of funny, but using this, as you can see when I do it, that's the original. And if I lower the curve, it's just going to darken that center area, but I want it to do it around it. So this inverts that. So now I can darken it a little bit more, but as you can see, it's not affecting that area. But what I like about that is it kind of makes it even more moody. Like you're getting the highlights, you're getting the shadows, you're getting the blacks, but it just kind of makes it look more vintage. So this is how I would probably finally edit this image. I just love the look of it. It's kind of vintage. You got an old car, you got that vintage look, and I like it. I like it a lot. So the last step I would do, as always, is Command Option Shift E, which will take these two and merge it into one. Then I'll go up to Filter, Other, High Pass. And on this one, I'm not seeing a lot of the detail in it, so I'm going to bump it up. Now I'm starting to see the detail around the steering wheel, about 1.2. Go into the blending mode and put it on overlay, and that just sharpens it a bit. So let's bump this, take it off. You can see over here, there's a lot of detail in that steering wheel that looks nice, and then sharpen it, it brings it out a little bit more. And that's it on this image. So this again is a vintage Ferrari. I'm gonna look it up and I'll leave down in the comments to give you what type of Ferrari it is, but this is how I would edit this image. I hope this helped. If this is helping you out anyway, just like and subscribe, and I'll see you next video.